Y'all, if you are anything like me, then you love learning about the most pointlessly fascinating topics and facts. And that is what this entire series is all about. But in today's video, we will be learning about the world's most isolated island. It is 1,750 miles from the shore of South Africa. This island has faced challenge after challenge, but has still somehow come out on top. This island is known as Tristan da Cunha and is home to the most isolated settlement on Earth, known as Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. Tristan's history starts all the way back in 1506, when the islands are first sighted by a Portuguese admiral by the name of Tristan da Cunha, who was on his way to the Cape of Good Hope. He would have landed on Tristan da Cunha if not for the rough seas preventing him from landing on shore. After the islands received the name, they began appearing on maps as early as 1509, only 3 years after the first sighting. Another fact about the islands are that they lay on the route known as the Maritime Motorway, which served as the main sailing route for traders coming from Europe looking to reach the Indian Ocean. That being said, the first recorded landing came from a Dutch crew aboard the vessel Heemstede in 1643. They replenished their supplies while on the island with fresh water, fish, seal, and penguins. It would be 167 years before the first attempt to settle the island would occur from this point. The leading man of the three-man American party from Salem, Massachusetts, was named Jonathan Lambert. They came to the island with the goal of establishing a trading station. But he didn't want to only establish a trading station. He also wanted to rename the main island Reception, and he also wanted to rename the chain of islands to be the Islands of Refreshment. The irony came when in 1813, the only remaining person of the original three-man party informed the arriving HMS Semiramis that Jonathan and the second of the three had drowned in a fishing accident. The remaining man of this party that I'm speaking of, his name is Thomas Curry, who to this day is subject of a legend about treasure that he may have left on the island, with there even being multiple books written about it. In 1816, a garrison aboard the HMS Falmouth took possession of the island on behalf of King George III. They then established Fort Malcolm to prevent France or American forces from capturing it. Yet, it was quickly abandoned after the wreck of the HMS Julia. The wreck took the life of 55 men. This, on top of questioning the overall strategic benefits of the island, ended with them deciding to abandon the island overall. So, November 1817, it was abandoned. But there was a small group of men led by William Glass and his wife, Maria, who convinced the commanding officer to stay on Tristan. This choice started a communal living project known as the Firm. Each resident signed an agreement that gave them all equal authorities as well as equal benefits. They split the cost equally as well as the profits equally. The agreement was signed on November 7th, 1817. The community grew slowly until July 23rd, 1821, when a 450-ton East Indiaman ship named Blendon Hall crashes. The 50 survivors are brought to the island where they remain until January of 1822. This island at this point has seen a lot of things, including seeing possibly one of the world's first ever blind dates. In 1826, the single men of the island are getting a little lonely, so they offer a captain named Simon Arm. They offer him 1 sack of potatoes per girl he could convince to move from St. Helena to Tristan Island. And this guy, Thomas Swain, oh my god, he will forever be known as the most desperate dude ever. He literally said he would marry the first woman to step ashore. But luckily for that guy Simon, bro, he brought back 5 women, which means bro got like 5 sacks of potatoes. That's a good deal right there. From 1826 on, Tristan Island grew thanks to whalers and people shipwrecking and then deciding to stay on the island, like one man named Peter Green. But by 1853, tragedy had struck the island when William Glass lost his battle with cancer at the age of 66. This caused 25 of his family members to decide to leave the island to go be with family on the mainland. Then, in 1857, another 45 people left with Reverend Taylor, meaning they lost a total of 72 people within 4 years. This left only 4 families for a total of 28 people on the island. On top of this, 3 big events in the world were about to make this so much worse. The first was the American Civil War, which curtailed the already struggling whaling industry. It got a lot of its supplies from the Tristan Islands. Then, in 1869, the Suez Canal was opened, which provided a much quicker and safer way to the Far East markets. And the third event would be the steam engine, replacing sailing and eliminating the need to hit certain currents, which led directly near the island and brought traffic to the island. But despite these factors, William Glass's son, Thomas Glass, returned to the island in 1866. Then, in 1867, HRH Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh and second son to Queen Victoria, visited the islands aboard the HMS Galatea. in which he officially dubbed the settlement Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. By 1881, the population had risen to 110 people, and people were purposely taking their ships near the island to then wreck their ships on purpose to commit insurance fraud. And this issue got so frequent that they didn't even want to insure anyone sailing in the South Atlantic waters. There was one attempt of fraud, and this was by the crew of the ship named Henry B. Paul. This attempt was a little different than the rest because this attempt left the island's crops destroyed and the island completely overran by black rats, which declined to trade for the island as well as just lowered the overall morale for the island. It was not good. And as if that wasn't bad enough, by 1885 there were 15 able-bodied men who decided they had to take matters into their own hands. Now that there were no longer ships sailing and catching currents, and they were now steam powered, they didn't really have to come that near to the island. And so the men decided that they were going to get in their newly donated raft and row out to this boat so that they could trade. And they rowed out there and they disappeared over a wave and they were never seen again. The boat capsized. Due to this, the population was now down to only 92 residents. 13 of them were widows, and there were only 4 adult males of those 92, and 2 of those adult males were in their 70s. So by 1892, it was down to only 50 residents. But by 1899, thanks to 2 shipwrecks, the number had rebounded slightly to 74 people total, and that was across 18 families. But despite this good bit of luck and news, the hardest years for the island were still yet to come. World War I brought an unprecedented, undescribable amount of isolation to the island. This island did not receive a single piece of incoming mail for 10 years. And the first piece of news or mail they were brought was not until 1919 on Armistice Day, when it was announced that the war had ended. Now that the war was over, we could get back to modernizing not only our world, but the Tristan de la Cunha island. And so by 1920, we had our first map of the island, which was done by Dr. Erling Christopherson and Alan Crawford. The island was slowly being modernized through the Second World War. They built schools, hospitals, stores, and offices. They employed islanders and paid them a cash wage that they were then able to spend at the store, which they called the canteen. After this, Dr. Woolley revived the Island Council, which worked to improve the island through the installation of a water and sewage system. By 1949, they were building a canning factory, which was built on Big Beach by the Tristan Development Company, where they canned and exported crawfish. Because of this, the island experienced an economical boom that would soon be derailed because in August 1961, the very volcano that had formed their home an estimated 132 million years ago was now threatening to take that same home away. The volcano was slowly erupting, and the magma underground was pushing the plates and causing earthquakes. The earthquakes then caused landslides, mudslides, and on October 8th, 1961, the eastern settlement was hit with a landslide, and the following morning, a fissure opened up between the settlement and the canning factory. This is when they decided to evacuate the island to the mainland, and luckily for the residents, there were 2 boats near the island that would be able to evacuate everybody, because in 1961, it was still a 6 to 10 day trip to the island. Luckily, all 295 residents made it off of the island, where they stayed on the mainland. Everyone figured this would be where the story ends. Even I thought this would be where the story ended. But it's not. By 1962, the island residents were bugging out. They were ready to go back home. So, a royal expedition studied the new cone and its impact. After receiving positive feedback, the islanders began lobbying to be allowed to return back home. August 9th, 1962, a resettlement party of 12 islanders left to head back to Tristan, and they made it back to the island within a month. They made it there on September 8th. After getting word of the successful voyage, the British Colonial Office arranged a ballot for islanders to vote if they were in favor of staying on the mainland or if they wanted to go back home to their island and join the 12 resettlers who had been sent ahead. The vote concluded in December with the results being 148 in favor of returning home and 5 in favor of staying on the mainland. An advance party of 51 people were sent ahead from Tilbury. It left on March 17th on the RMS Amazon. By November 10th, 1963, every islander who wanted to return had done so. And from 1963 to 2000, they rebuilt the island by rebuilding homes, roads, filling in that fissure, rebuilding the canning factory. From 1965 to 1967, they even built a new harbor, and they prospered until tragedy struck once again in 2001 when a severe hurricane hit them. The damage was so severe that major international aid was needed to rebuild the settlement. Then, just when things were starting to feel normal after the hurricane, 2004 rolls around and brings more chaos with it. Just 24 kilometers southeast of the island, there was an underwater eruption that occurred. Luckily, it didn't bring any major issues to the island, but it brought a lot of fear and worries for years to come. Then, in 2009, there was a bit of good news for the island for a change. In 2009, the island actually ended up getting a new constitution, and it was actually now classified as part of the territory instead of being a dependency. This was big for the island. This was a big deal. They were finally being seen as part of a bigger thing. Then, from 2010 onward, the island continued to be self-sufficient to the point they developed better communications such as broadband internet. And even today, it still takes 6 to 7 days to reach the island. But this fact has not prevented the island from modernizing or sprinting straight into the future, because in 2020, the island established a massive marine protection zone covering 90% of its waters in hopes to preserve biodiversity. And as of April 2026, the current population of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas sits at roughly 250 to 270 residents, who to this day follow many of the island's traditions, such as communal potato farming at the good old potato patches. Everyone, I want to thank you for sticking with me to hear all these amazing facts. I heard about this island a couple days ago, and I just heard some surface lame information, and I was like, well, how the hell did this island even come to be? How did it form? What's the story? Why'd they live here? What happened? And so nobody was telling me that, so I told myself, and I made a video, and now you can enjoy it. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all, and I doubt this one gets uploaded to Facebook because I don't think you guys would watch the whole thing. Anyways, later.